The 11th, approximately 10:02 a.m. We're at Tennessee Power in Nashville. Our monthly meeting for the Inmate Disciplinary Oversight Board. I'm just going to go around and recognize the board members. We have Dr. Mary Carpos, we have Mr. Clarksville Lindsay, Mr. Mike Dunn, Mr. Dale Carr, Mr. Mike Sharon, Mr. Lee Frank, myself, Jerry Bassfinder, and we have Miss Betsy Wiseman, virtual, so we do have a forum this morning. And before I ask Brother Mike Dunn to lead us in open prayer, I'd also like to recognize that this Father's Day is our executive director's birthday.
Oh, well, actually, it's the day after. Yes, yes.
Paul's birthday is the 16th.
How old are you?
Well, actually, I've decided this year I'm gonna age backwards. So I think I'm gonna be 41 this year. Since apparently we can just choose whatever we want,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm choosing to do this year.
Well, one is the 10 code in Nashville. This is wrong.
Duly noted, sir.
Duly noted.
So if Mr. Dunn will lead us in opening prayer, we'll be ready to
I would
go.
be honored. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunities you give us to serve. Thank you for all of our board members and guests here and employees, and thank you so much for the blessings of life, liberty, and our families and our employment. We pray specifically for our birthday boy this month, and may he have a good time with his family. And we pray for the progress of our board, and we pray for all those involved in state government. May you lead them, guide them, direct them, and may they always rely on you for guidance, support, and strength. Be with us this day. Bless our fellowship and bless our progress. And we pray you open doors for us that only you can. May you be pleased with our efforts. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Stahl, it's yours.
Thank you, appreciate it. That was lovely, Mr. Dunn, I really appreciate that. Okay, let's jump right in. We don't have too much on the agenda today except our normal stuff, so hopefully it won't take too long. Let's move on to our next agenda item, which is the review and approval of minutes from our past meeting in May. Those were previously sent out. The recording is also up on the website as always. If there's no discussion or comments on that, I will entertain a motion to move those and approve those for the record.
Motion.
Second.
Motion seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, the motion is unanimous. I appreciate that. And that takes care of that. Okay, let's talk a little bit, my favorite part of the meeting, a little bit about what we've been up to for the past month since our last meeting. Really, really proud of the work we've done. We have a couple of things that are coming up that I think are going to be good to just talk about real quick. We were going to go to the District Attorney General's Conference, which is upcoming this year, but they've actually invited us to be at their executive committee meeting on Thursday. So they're going to be in East Tennessee, but I have the link for that. It's going to happen at 9:45. I'd like to send that out to everybody, and everybody's invited at that. I've already got confirmation that all the DAs will be there. We got a 30-minute to hour time slot so that we can introduce ourselves to them. They can ask questions directly from us. And I thought that would be a good opportunity just to have the floor with all of them directly. If the DA's conference can be a little bit crazy, but this is going to be an opportunity for us to talk with each of them about anything they want to know from us and anything we'd like to know from them individually. So I will be sending out that link. If you're available, please jump on. Like I said, it's going to be tomorrow, 9:45 is our time slot. But I'm really excited about that. I really want to commend our board in general and a couple of board members. They've been doing amazing on the site visits. We've got some discussion coming up on what they're hearing from those site visits in a little bit. But there were 4 site visits done this month. And there's going to be one more today after this meeting. So we're really, really doing a good job of hitting all the facilities and making sure that we're getting in front of the people we need to get in front of and talk to them and getting that feedback. I think it's been good. Like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but that's great. And if we do 5 facilities a month, there's no way we won't have everything done by the end of the year. So really appreciate that. The appeals subcommittee has been working very hard. There's been 6 appeals that have been heard and denied since our last meeting. Another appeal though was heard and was actually granted. It was a situation where The inmate, there was an incident and two inmates were charged. One inmate was adjudicated guilty, the other was dismissed, not guilty. We messed up the action form and we sent to the inmate who was adjudicated not guilty, we sent him the action form saying that we had taken away several months. He appealed, we recognized it, and so we changed it in the system. So I thought that went very well for the committee on appeals. I really appreciate their work catching that. And I thought that was great. Tammy's been working super hard this month. We've got a new printer in the office. We've got our P card so we can order things. We're looking at getting phones for the office. She's been doing great with all that, preparing today's stuff. And along with the action forms that we'll talk about in a second. We've submitted numerous requests for information to Linda Thomas, who's been really helpful, getting some information back to us in a timely manner. We appreciate her efforts, liaisoning with our group and helping us with what we need to know. We distributed for the month of May 1,442 cases, which came out to an average of about 180 per board member. So I know you guys are working incredibly hard, and I really, really appreciate it. On that note, one of the things we talked about at the last meeting was some of the numbers, the statistics that we're trying to put together to inform the public and our stakeholders where we're at sort of for the first half of this year. A lot of that's still being put together. It's been very busy, but I've started on that process. But I do want to talk about what we were able to accomplish just in the last 30 days, because it's really quite impressive. So if you'll remember, we weren't able to have quorum at the March meeting. So at the April meeting, or at the May meeting, we were able to do actual voting on 2 months worth of cases. So after the April meeting, after the May meeting, we were able to send out 1,164 separate action forms for disciplinaries, which is a lot. Just in case anybody, I know you all are very familiar with that process, but Tammy manually takes the information from the reports, starts filling out the forms. I fill out a description, calculate the difference, double check it. Jerry triple checks it. We sign it. We send it over. So over 1,000 forms in 3 weeks is a lot of work for Tammy. So very impressive. Now, what that means is the board for over those 60 days removed an additional 6,480 months from inmates, which comes out to about 194,000 days just for those 2 months. So that's all your all's work. We were also able to return 235 months to inmates, which comes out to a little over 7,000 days. So really, really impressive what you all were able to do in the last 60 days. I can't say thank you enough for all that work. As we continue to put our statistics together, those numbers are going to grow. I think looking at it the other day, the website's been updated, but we have reviewed over 18,000 individual incidents since January 2024, which is very, very impressive. We have our numbers for the months removed from inmates, in addition to what TDOC is taking away, is approaching 300,000. And we've also been able to add back to inmates close to 10,000 days. So it's just the work that y'all have been doing for a while now is just very, very impressive. So thank you all for that. And that's it. That's really the update on the last 30 days. Any notes or discussions? Jerry. Yeah. So one of the things that we're also trying to do, and this is a discussion I'd like to have with the board on a couple of ideas to continue to expand the staff and improve some of the things we're doing. But until we're able to get additional personnel on board, one of the things we've done is we've reached out to our contacts over at General Services, and they've linked us up with an IT person who's going to be helping Tammy streamline the process so that it isn't quite as manual as it is right now. So we're trying to develop a program that can be utilized to have the reports that you all send in with Excel speak directly to Word, and then auto fill in the biographical information for the inmates that need to have action forms, and then auto convert those Word documents into PDFs that we can then send out. So we're in the process of doing that. As we continue to build that out, one of the things that probably will come to you all with a request will be to formalize the way that we're submitting the reports, so that when we build out that program, if we have different ways that people are submitting their reports, that program won't be able to find the information that it needs and send it over to Word. So what we're doing right now is working. It's not a problem. But as we create that program and build out that program, we'll look to standardize the way everybody is submitting their information so that it fits into that program and then it becomes a more seamless process. And it also helps reduce errors, which is a big part of it as well. So we're really trying to get that done. But that's a small piece of a larger discussion that I hope to have over the next couple of months about additional personnel, IT people, whoever, but additional support personnel. But we're working with what we have right now, and I think that's the plan current. So that's what we're trying to do. Is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. All right, if there's no comments or notes on that, we'll move on to the next. Yes, sir.
The location in East Tennessee for the conference, are you gonna email that out to us? Where at?
Yes, would you like to go and be physically there?
I would like to, depending on the logo.
Okay, yeah, let me double check that that's in, I have it written somewhere, but I can get that to you. And I'll let them know, if you do plan on being there in person, just let me know, so that, because I'm sure it'll be secure and all that, so I'll just
Yeah,
let you know. Yeah, it's not like a public meeting,
Okay.
so I think the public is allowed. The last one I went to here in downtown, there was no public there, but they may be allowed to be in them, I'm not sure. But in any case, just let me know that you'd like to be there, and I'll make sure that you know where it is and that they know that you're coming. So, yes, I can let you know. Okay, great. Moving on to the next agenda item, updates. Okay, we are still trying to plan a memorandum of understanding meeting with the governor's team and personnel at the Department of Corrections. We are waiting on our quarterly report for the outside prosecutions list, which should be coming to us by the end of this month. We are working with UHR on the attorney hire. There was someone I had in mind, really, really good candidate. She has a contract that she's comfortable with. So I'm working with UHR to make sure that that's something we're going to be comfortable with. But that should be resolved here shortly. And then I can bring to everybody an attorney that I think might work well for us for the part-time until we're able to hire a full-time attorney, which I think we'll be able to do next year with the budget increase. Okay, the only other thing is this is the end of the fiscal year this month. The next fiscal year starts on the 1st of July. So we're very busy doing a lot of different things, budget closeout reports, ACH recons, et cetera. That's what Tammy and I will be working on for this month, but we're looking good for the budget for this year. We should be able to return some money, which is always appreciated by the officials who handle the general fund. And so I appreciate everybody's, consideration of budget and all that when they, with all the stuff you guys do. So it's been great. And that's it. Any other questions on updates? Okay, great. Well, let's move into our next agenda item, which is an approval for the record of the matters which we have marked as approved by the individual board members. Again, these are just cases that we've said we don't have any further questions about. We aren't going to re-adjudicate. They weren't dismissed or some other notice in our spreadsheet. These are just the ones that each individual board member has said, I looked this, I approved it, I like it, and we get it off our books and into the record. So for this month, or for April, there were 484 of those cases between the different board members, bringing our total for the year up to 1,767. If there's no question about those numbers, I'll entertain a motion to approve those and move them into the record. Motion made. Seconded. Appreciate that, Mr. Carr. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Okay, hearing none. The motion passes unanimously. I appreciate that, everybody. That's always a good thing. We can clear some of those from the discussion calendar moving forward. Okay, so our next agenda item is going to be led by our chairman, and this is going to be discussion, I think, about two things. One main thing, which is what we've been able to do, which is go to the facilities and visit with personnel over there. But what they've been hearing about us, the feedback we're getting from those personnel, and also what we're trying to talk with them about and get with them. So, Chairman, I'll turn it over to you and you can talk a little bit about what you've been able to hear this month.
Yes, which I'd like for Mr. Mike Sharon and I both to comment on this. Mike was nice enough to actually chauffeur me to West Tennessee Prison and Northwest Prison. We had a good meeting with both the wardens at West Tennessee because they have a female facility and a male facility. We're able to, I want to thank Commissioner Thomas, Assistant Commissioner Thomas. The day that we had our site visits at West Tennessee and Northwest was the execution day, which all prisons are supposed to be on lockdown. But they made a exemption, allowed us to come on in, and very gracious. We had the D-board sergeant in West Tennessee was there for what, like 30 minutes before the rest of the wardens and all got there, and was very open with us as far as the matrix and what he's seeing. And so was Lake County, or excuse me, Northwest, I'm sorry. Yeah. When I was a kid, they started out as Lake County with Northwest. We met there at 1 o'clock. We were in West Tennessee at 10. They were very gracious. Warden, super nice, and all his staff there. One of the things that the D-board chairman's brought up is, you know, with the new matrix, there's very little room to negotiate. And he said, you know, if we've got somebody and it's a person that is not really a thorn in our side all the time, but he's got multiple class A's, you know, he said all it takes is 3, and he's in the 9 to 12 range. He said, if we decide, and I'm just going to throw out a number, like he's got 6 priors, but the guy comes before me as the D-board sergeant, and he says, you know, Sarge, I'm guilty of this. I want to accept responsibility. And the D-board sergeant said, well, I'm going to take 9 months from him because he has the choice of 9 to 12. He said, would the board back us on that? Because he said, I don't have a lot of room to play with. And he said, you know, if you got somebody that wants to accept responsibility, and he said, you know, 9 months length is a pretty good length because it takes basically a year and a half to build up 9 months worth of credit, of good time and all. And Mike and I discussed it. We said, you know, we understand what you're talking about. You know, we are all individuals at board, but that would be definitely something that we've talked about. And he brought up, he said, you know, a lot of it, he said, even though the people that are still going to keep getting this, you know, they've had 6, then it goes to 8. And he said, even if they plead guilty and I give them 9, he said, now if it's assault, they hurt one of my officers, he said, I'm going to take 24. And so far, I've been consensus with all the people, chairmen, you know, we're going to put max if they hurt somebody. And he said, but, you know, we're going to end up taking all the time away. He said, our fear is when you get somebody and it's one of those that you've taken all their time and they just don't care, you know, they can go assault guard, and if the district attorney's office doesn't prosecute the assault, you know, the D-board can take time away, but you can only take up the maximum 5 years extension. He said, we kind of worry about officer safety. And he said that, you know, if we could have a little latitude, you know, if we make a decision based on that. He said, if they push not guilty or something, he said, I'm going to take the 12. But that's something that we said that we would discuss. Mike?
No, he was almost pleading with us,
Yeah.
just saying, hey, you know, it's gonna make our jobs more difficult, if we do that. So he's almost saying, please, you know, if we give them, we're within the matrix, please abide by that unless you find it, you know, reason, extenuating circumstance, something like that. Yeah, very, very good discussions. All the wardens were very welcoming. And they brought in most of them brought in a lot of staff, sometimes 12, 13 people. We were a little overwhelmed, didn't have enough business cards. But had very frank conversations. Some of the D-board sergeants were in there and we weren't sure they were even allowed to talk to us before the wardens got there, and they were just talking. So it was, for me, eye-opening, because, I haven't been in a whole lot of prisons. I put some people there, certainly haven't visited a lot of them. But had really, really good conversations. Some of the folks were, talking about the new matrix and our role and what we're doing. We asked, it was making things better, and they said yes, that at least one of them said that he believed that the behaviors were slowly starting to change inside of his prison because of the matrix and the way things were going. They knew they weren't going to be able to get away with stuff. They weren't necessarily going to be able to blame the D-board because here's this new matrix that has to be abided by. Very, very, very good conversation.
Yeah, and it's South Central yesterday. Excellent meeting there. Every prison we've gone to, they have been actually at South Central, the warden finally told the security desk, just forget scanning them, sit there with me, just come on thing. So
What do you think, Ken?
yeah, well, no,
They still patted us down.
yeah, they still patted us down, but,
We have to get the full scan.
yeah, there was a lady at South Central and Mike was talking and you could tell she was kind of timid, and he asked her, said, is there anything you'd like to say? And she said, well, I don't know what Mike said, feel free to talk to us. And she said, well, we have been told that y'all were going to come in here and just completely chew us up and start this business all over. And, basically they were scared to death of us. And after talking to us, everybody says, hey, we understand what your board's doing and it's helping us and we're seeing a difference in it. So we've been very pleased with what we see coming out. And it was at Attorney Center, the D-board chairman brought up about the RTPs. The D-board chairman at Attorney Center, and again, it's kind of like they're afraid to talk to us because they might get in trouble. And the warden was super nice. The warden told him, hey, speak friendly, go ahead and just say what you think. And he said, I really have a problem with RTPs. He said, you got, which I didn't realize they had, 40-something programs that they teach Attorney Centers, what the warden said, different trades and all. And he said, we get these RTPs, and the guy refuses to go to class and all. And he said, if he's got, 3 priors, he said, I'm taking 9 to 12. He said, because the warden, we go by the matrix. And if you notice, Attorney Center's got their act together. And he said, what bothers me is you've got a guy that can basically miss 5 classes and he's lost all his credits just from these RTPs. And then when I get like assault or something that is a more aggressive case, he said, I take the time away, but it's not really doing anything because he's already maxed out on RTPs. So he said one of the things that he had thought of is like, and this will be up to the commissioner's office, is that they gave them a different, set of, instead of RTPs being anything 3 up, 9 and 12, give them a little bit more leniency. Because, the maximum that you can get that attending class is 60 good days a year. If they took just 90 days for each RTP, that's 30 days more than they could even get for the whole year. But he said, I worry about not having enough strength to actually hammer them when they're doing something against an officer or against an inmate, because taking all the time for RTPs. So he made sense. And which we also learned that the county that Attorney Center is in, their district attorney does not appear to be, taking hardly any cases. They're sending cases in and never get anything.
I think the grand jury meets very often either.
Yeah, and now, South Central, Warden said their DA is great. Obviously, West Tennessee, State Prison, which they have the same, district attorney as Whiteville and Hardeman County. They're on top of it. Northwest, Danny Goodman is the DA out of Dyer County. At their last grand jury, they had 60-something cases just from the prison. So a lot of these DAs are getting more involved in it, but we've had some really good meetings and have learned a lot of things on their ideas and how they're handling it.
Yes, sir. The warden at Attorney Center was Chris Brunn, Warden Brunn.
No, he got moved up.
Oh, he did?
He was at.
Yeah, he is the, compliance officer for, all the core civic prisons.
Oh, wow, okay.
I'm sorry, he's South Central, Hardeman, and White. But he was there.
He was at all three of those meetings.
Yeah, he's been with us. He's a great guy.
He's very wise,
Yeah.
very intelligent.
Yeah.
Really
And
big
he,
family of you as well.
yeah, he had no bash, no problem.
Institutional investigators, they all do.
Yeah, Chris would, if one of the staff members would have a question, he'd answer it. He'd speak right up and say, this is what the matrix, this is how you look at the matrix.
There is no one I know behind bars, so to speak, that is as knowledgeable as he is. And he knows his stuff extremely well. And he's very matter of fact, doesn't sugarcoat anything, and he's great at his job. Absolutely great. I worked with him when he was at Trousdale, and he was the contract monitor for security at Trousdale. And I let him sit in on my interviews and things like that. And hundreds of times I worked with him. Great guy, highly commendable. Trust anything he says. And I would welcome and invite us to form some open line of communication with these D-board sergeants, where if they do have an exception or want to articulate, this is why we did this, just let us know, and we can back up people. And we can articulate things.
We have expressed that.
Yeah.
We can have.
All of them are cars. This is why.
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea.
It's very simple.
If I could ask a question, these are very good points. And I'm very appreciative of the fact that the both of you are networking with these state boards. But I'm reminded that this is a matrix that the Department of Corrections created.
Right, we reminded that.
And so what's in my mind is, while this is extremely good feedback, my hope would be that they're sharing this through their warden to their assistant commissioner so that they can modify their matrix. Remember in December, we discussed if we at some point as a board developed our own matrix, that we would consider different offenses would in fact have different sentence withdrawals associated with it. And so to hear from the field that seems to resonate with them as well. In May, Mike Stahl and I had a conversation with Assistant Commissioner Linda Thomas, and I asked some very specific questions that touched on these areas, just trying to understand how is the matrix being used? What's the expectation of how the matrix is being used? And just clarifying some points. So, for instance, the current matrix, the top line reads, what are their prior A's? But then the next line says prior B's, prior C's, and then 3 lines of combination A, B, A, C. But from speaking with, Assistant Commissioner Linda Thomas, she indicated that the instruction, going out to the deed boards is that they only read the top line. And so for me, that begs the question, why do the other lines exist if they're not to be enforced by the deed board? And, she was very candid and said, obviously, this is an evolving process. I think we all understand that and appreciate that this is an evolving process. The feedback that you and Mr. Sharon are getting, is going to be extremely helpful to the Department of Corrections as they work to refine. This is just their first version, you know, and, we're coming to understand how it's working in the field. But one of the things, that I asked specifically about was, what's the review process at the prisons? This is the direct question I asked her. What is the review process at the prisons for instance, the matrix math and the justified deviations? Because that's what we're talking about here. And she indicated that there is no facility level oversight. And I said, so is central office reviewing the process? And she said, only if there's an appeal. And she noted there are very few appeals. So it seems that there's an opportunity for more conversations between the central office and the assistant commissioner and these deed boards and these wardens so that the true, roles can be fulfilled in terms of the department actually refining this. And I think what you've shared, and I would assume you'll share it with the department as well, this will help them as they work on their matrix. But to the, I guess, the more salient point, that is, how does this board handle deviations? And what's the result of those deviations? So my perspective would be, or my preference would always be, that the department itself modifies its own matrix and gives the latitude to the deed board, rather than the board trying to create our own sense of what that deviation looks like, since it's not our matrix to begin with. So my hope would be that the department would create that. And that really goes to a point, because there's a place on this matrix that says if there's a deviation. So regarding, there's a note at the bottom that says that committee's finding, quote, by an overwhelming or substantial reason can deviate. And so I asked, where is that being documented? So that we as board members can see why it is that they did deviate, because that would give us an understanding that then we could have a professional opinion about. And she said, at this time, there's not been a clear instruction given on how they're to document it. So I say again, this is an opportunity for TVOC to make that clear instruction. Once they create a place or write it in some narrative for us, then we as board members can read it. What I'm uncomfortable with is just blanketly saying, well, if they deviated, they must have had a good reason. I personally would need to see what that reasoning was, just like I have to see what the incident is, to decide if that makes sense. So thank you for letting me speak.
Right, and what you have said is definitely been a discussion point that Mike and I have had with the wardens. Actually, the warden at Ernie Center addressed that, because Mike had asked him about the bees and all. And he told him, he said, we look just at the A's. He said, you can't take away pain from the bees. He said, if we start figuring on the bees, and we're gonna have a judge say, well, you figure time taken away on a charge that doesn't extract that. And we've got several different answers.
So, yeah, and I don't want to belabor the point. But what we're telling them in these meetings, you guys push it up your chain of command, and we're gonna, when we meet with Linda and the other folks, we're gonna do the same thing. Because to his point, I forget which one of them I've got in my notes. They are looking at Bs and Cs, which makes sense to me, because if you look at this policy. So they're absolutely looking at Bs and Cs in some of them, so they're disconnecting their training.
Yeah.
We're all on the same page as you, Dr. Purpose, and that we want them to be uniform in how they do this. So we expressed to them that send it up your chain of command, and then we will, as a group, bring it up with some of the higher ups at TDSUB. Yeah, they need to all get at the same page, absolutely.
Go ahead.
And at Attorney Center, we met with a gentleman that actually reviews all of your homeless, input. And every prison might say, hey, I'm Mike Sharon, I'm the one that sends you all the questions. But, you know, when we were in his office talking to him, everybody was just completely open. They would talk to us. And he said, you know, now I understand. He said, we were taught to put just minimal amount of information in our incident reports. And he looks at Mike and I says, both of y'all are law enforcement. Now we know why you want more put into the narratives, because you want to know more of what happened. And he said, I get that. And he said that, you know, that makes sense now. So that's something they said, you know, they're gonna work on. So that it's amazing how good they've all been to bend over back. Did you have something you want?
Yeah, I was just going, you can go ahead, Quan.
You probably should go first, but I was gonna go back to the RTPs. And
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say, they've got a situation to deal with drugs, with assaults. With interference with officers. Looking at it, probably the TSD and the RTP, maybe that's a conversation we could have about maybe the first one, it could be a B. Because right now, the RTP, if they write it down, it's gonna be an A. There's no option. A TSD, there's no option. I don't know why there's not a TSD B option. Like somebody puts plastic straw on a steel and they take 9 to 12 months from it, seems pretty heavy. So that would be what if I was sitting with the commissioner with Linda Thomas, I'd say, maybe I like how it's all working, except maybe I can understand the RTP. I know the legislature wanted them to go to class to get better, so when then they leave, so they made it specific, the RTP.
Do you think it's worthwhile having a conversation with?
I think the TSD for sure. I think the TSD for sure.
And assault on staff too, especially serious injury. It should start at like 18 or 20.
Yeah.
Or it should be an automatic. So I think there's some opportunity there to help them tweak this. First of all, make sure they're training properly, consistently across the board. And then there's some tweaks, right? Certainly on the minor end, and then on the more.
But we have the 24 though.
Yeah, but the
You're
idea
saying
that.
like throwing, you're saying like,
To that D-board sergeant's point, you shouldn't, RTP shouldn't be in the same category as stabbing or correction.
that's right.
You know what I mean? And it should weigh heavier, so it shouldn't even be 9 to 12 ranked in my humble opinion.
Well, we want to be careful with, as mentioned, the legislature did put in the statute in the bill that they do want us to focus on
Well,
RTP.
that's
So,
your point too. Well, okay, so then, but it's still to my point.
But as you
sure,
said,
I'm just saying, before we want to make sure that we're satisfying
Sure.
what they want
Sure.
in our recommendations. to
I
make
will say this, if you look at most RTPs, it'll say this is his third or fourth warning on this. It's usually not, you don't notice that when you're reading it. It's not like the first time and they, wow.
So they can be a warning.
No, they'll say like he has been warned several times to come to class and then.
But that's what I'm
finally-
saying. So, I mean.
So I mean, he could go to class.
So there's almost, there
He
is
could go
almost,
to class.
yeah, he could just go to class too. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. The RTP, what I was gonna look at, maybe the legislator to speak to this, what if there's more reward, more incentive to take those instead of like the max you can get is 60 and you can take away? Because when you take someone and you incarcerate them, they do need therapy, they do need classes, they need to learn a trade, a skill, be educated. So, I see a lot of RTPs, but maybe it's just not enough skin. If I can only get 60 and you're only gonna take 90. But I would say that, I would argue that the TDS is more severe than the RTPs, Lee. Because
Okay.
for the simple fact, when you tamper with department or a camera, or you blocking, or you wedging a door, that causes a security threat. If a guard is if a correction officer is walking and believe everything's secure, and you have vented your door because you wanna go and commit a crime, you have an enemy. So that's severe. Then you have the inmates that are out and they're supposed to be in. So I would say that those should start off at A because it could lead to
Yeah.
more
I
of
mean, I see your
security.
point.
So when you look and see if someone's going to be stabbed and that person knows how to block the camera, interfere with the camera, know how to rig the door or rig their flap and know how to fish. When your flap is supposed to be closed and you like, well, it's locked down, and then the guy over here knew how to fish, he got fentanyl, now he's overdosed in his cell. So I believe we should take tampering, that should be up if we're gonna go from RTP, because the being able to rig a device while being incarcerated, then this correction officer, job is probably on the line. Institution that made the news, getting sued, but he checked the flaps. He thought it was secure. But, well, now somebody's mother want to know how did their kid get stabbed, overdosed, because they learned how to tamper with the device. So if they're only getting slapped on the wrist for tampering with the device, that leads to so much more. It can lead to a bigger security threat if you be.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
And so now that you said it that way, I didn't think about the fishing and getting out to hurt someone. I guess I've never really thought of it that way, but that's a good point. So really it leads to RTP because everything else has,
Yeah.
I think they got it done pretty well because you can have the assault, somebody just gets clocked and
Yeah.
sometimes that'll be a B.
Yeah, so you.
It's different than get some guy and
Yes.
putting a knife to him.
It definitely can. And going back to the tampering, if you're having an incident with a correctional officer and this inmate is saying what he's gonna do, and the officer is going back and forth, and he turns around thinking that door is secure. That could put that correctional officer lives in danger as well as the inmates. When it comes to refusing to participate, I believe if somehow, or this could be an alley for you, where the legislator could reward more. Because what we're doing is we're taking people, let me rephrase, we're not taking people off the streets, we're holding people accountable for things they did on the streets. But then when someone comes in at 18, 19 years old with 12-year sentence, and we give no therapy, we don't teach no trade, they're not reading, they're not going to school. And just because they sat there and we put them back in society and say, go make something of yourself, with what skill? So I would actually believe that we should put more reward on participating in classes and put more consequence if you don't, because you do endanger yourself and other Tennesseans when you don't come in and get reformed and you don't go talk to a counselor and a therapist and you don't learn a trade. So then you get back out and now whatever you had on your books, you get a check, you get a Greyhound ticket, and you're dumped back into society with no therapy, no trade, no skill, no education. So I actually think we should reward participating more in those classes and add a consequence.
What would you say is why they just don't feel like going to work today? They just lazy
Yeah.
or just don't feel like it, or they don't go to class, like I'm blowing this off.
For one,
What's the mindset?
the mindset is as an individual, don't want to be reformed, no hope. The other person feels, I'm not really going to work for 36 cents, feels like slavery. It's not as sensitive to it. I'm not coming out of here for pennies for cents on the penny at this point. And I'm just not going to do it. And what is the incentive? So then with that going, I believe we should take people in prison and teach them the ways of the world. If we don't wake up and go to work, it's something called electricity won't be available in our home. I believe if you don't get up and go to class and you do something, there should be things taken away. So someone says there's no reward. And the one thing I believe why we see so much crime and illegal activity taking place, because for 24 hours in a day, the only time a grown man or woman get to make the decision for themselves is when a correction officer is not looking. So we babysit people for 10 to 15 years. We don't teach them how to exercise their free will and make choices. And then we let them back out and say, make choices, make the right choice. But we haven't created that the whole time they've been in timeout. So the only time they get to make their own choice is when it's a drug deal, when it's a fight. Everything else, we teach you when to eat, when to sleep, when to work. And I think this is a larger thing that the legislators just have to take up. What can the state not provide for you if you don't go to work? Because that's how society is. The Bible says if you don't work, you don't eat. So if someone says, I'm not going to work today, do you dock his pay? Do they point out, like, what do we do? I think a lot of the system is, for lack of better terms, babysitting on the taxpayer dollars. And then we put them back out and say, go start a company. Pull yourself up by your bootstrap. So I think it's a larger conversation that we can look at systems that if I don't go to work but while incarcerated, I'm getting 3 meals a day. I still have water in here and my lights still come on. What is the incentive of getting up going to work?
Well, I think that's a good point. I mean, the question of institutionalization is a big one. And, you know, it's definitely something we want to talk about and kind of frame around. I do want to say, though, I think it's great that this level of conversation is fantastic. This is kind of what I think we were hoping to get when we said, let's implement their matrix for a couple of months. Let's see what's working. Let's see what's not working. And then we can start to make better recommendations for how to augment it, modify it, change it, whatever. And we're starting to see that, you know, and so I'm really encouraged. I think we're going to get to the point where hopefully soon, where we all sit down and say, okay, we've been working with this matrix for 3 months, 4 months. We know it was, for lack of a better term, a real mess before the new matrix. Now we're seeing some improvement utilizing the new matrix, but there's a lot more to be done. And so we can come together and talk a little bit about what do we want to recommend with regard to the RTPs and TFPs and making those based on the feedback we're hearing, based on the things we're seeing, all of that stuff. It's a great conversation.
I would say just real finishing, I still give it an A for where we are. I really like the new matrix. I mean, there's a few little tweaks I would do. I don't want to say that, I don't want anybody to misunderstand.
No, but I think that's probably what we'll end up saying at the end of that conversation.
I talked to Lieutenant Governor McNally and I said, what we're doing now, what you wanted, and I told him what we're doing. I said that basically the ones that are showing that they're not behaving in prison, they're going to be this way when they get out. He said that's exactly what I wanted. We're keeping them in as long as legally possible. The ones that refuse to behave while they're in prison.
But even the matrix can be cleaned up a little bit, like the B's and the C's. I mean, there's some things we can say, look, this is confusing.
Right.
And so
I just appreciated them for making that step. And as Jerry said, everyone that he's talked to say, you got rid of the zeros. That was the number one step you had to do, to take that out.
I did have one other question for Mike, Sharon. Are you guys hearing feedback on the consistency and the understanding with regard to the sentence extensions? What are they saying?
That's another thing and that's another question for Linda, Richard, whoever, next time we can get in front of them. But yeah, there's still confusion, inconsistency across the prisons we visited so far.
So some are utilizing sentence extensions and some aren't.
Some of the D boards don't even know anything.
They don't exist. Okay.
Some of the wardens didn't even know about it, and the D board sergeant said, well, yes, sir, I'll fill out the forms for the sentence extension. And the warden said, well, I didn't know we could do that. But
Yes.
So that's another area we'll have to let them know needs to continue to be cleaned up. So,
But-
I mean, it's great. The feedback is great.
in Quantel's case the other day from Northwest, it's a new warden, he was from Northeast, it's from Northwest. And, Quantel's case, they had a question over assault on an officer, and in Quantel, and it said in the narrative that there were no injuries. And they took, what, 18 months? 24 months. And then we read in their warden's 60-month sentence extension. So we knew there was more. And so Quantel asked Mike, send Commissioner Thomas a question, and actually in less than an hour and a half, she replied back and said, well, this is the whole story that had been updated into the Thomas system, but the officer after work went to his private doctor because he was still having some problem. His jaw was broken. So they're gonna do, they're obviously prosecuting him, but the warden took 60 months for that, plus the 24 months that Diggle took 7 years.
But we need to make sure that we asked that question to Commissioner Thomas, that needs to get back to the people who are inputting into Thomas, and you need to update that. If we don't see it, we can't, to Dr. Carpos' point, we don't, we're limited in what we can either change or accept or whatever about it. So it's important. So I think that's great. And we do plan on talking, I hope as many people as possible can come to Deborah K today. We do a site visit out there. And these are the types of things that I'm hoping we can talk about with them about that. Well, I was going to let Tom talk over.
Going back to Dr. Carpos and Mr. Stahl's point, letting someone know, because the email she responded back was very detailed. It was thorough, and that should have been in e-Thomas, because by statute, legal, that person, way I looked at it, he was supposed to be rewarded times that for assault on a correction officer. So, but we held off before we made a decision and reached out. So, and that just could have set a bad precedent as far as inmates are. So just grateful to that email that was in depth and detail, because from that reporting, it was the statute, I would have had to give him time back. And that could have just rippled it. It would have been a bad look. So just again, I think for me personally, more detailed reporting in e-Thomas when they write these things, it would help me out a lot. It would help out a lot. This is critical.
The last thing I wanted to bring up was the other part of what he said. I'm looking here at Whiteville. Whiteville's actually in the matrix now for the most part. And they're taking 4 priors to 9, 5 to 9, 7 to 9. So they're using a lot of 9 months. I'm accepting that. And I think, and I don't know if we need to have policy about it, or we just need to talk about it, or we do it differently. If they give them 9, they're in the matrix. And I'm not moving it up to 12. I'm leaving what they've got because they're in the matrix. And I don't know how other people are doing. I think we need to talk about it. That's what the people were begging you about, right?
Yes.
Where they're in the matrix, but we still bump it up. So, I mean, is there a discussion on that? Anybody? Anybody do it?
I just reintroduced the idea that if there's a reason, it'd be easy to communicate to us, to simply email, hey, by the way, we had a hearing in these particular cases. We decided this because of this. We understand. I mean, just establish communication. It goes back to what the doctor said. If there's an adjustment, we just need to know why, not just a blanket.
No, I'm
Again,
saying,
the more
I'm
that,
saying that they're at 9,
Yes.
but we don't want 9, we want 12. So we're adding 3.
Example, when you look and say, guy, he's in the matrix, they gave him 9. And then you look from 25 to 24, he has 13A, and they're back to back, or you still staying at 9. That's like, that's the thing.
I understand that. I'm talking if they've got 3 or 4.
3 or 4, no,
I'm
I'm,
an exception to the rule.
Except-
Being accepted.
yes, I was trying to clarify what I think you were asking the board, Lee. I wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, if I think there are times for exception. Let's say he's got 22.
Yeah.
I've had some 26. I can see that. I'm talking when he's got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
But it depends on what those 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8s are. And so each of us are reading our individual cases. And I mean, for me, I look at not just counting how many, but what were those? And so somebody might have 3 or 4 that you personally might think that those are relatively minor, such as previously you would have considered a TSD to be relatively minor. But somebody else might look at it and go, well, no, look at what security they were tampering with. What devices were they tampering with? So, to me, the fact that you have 3, 4, 5 of those, I feel very comfortable taking 12 instead of the 9, unless they've written something for me that would tell me why we feel that despite the fact that they've got 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm still comfortable with only taking 9. But me not knowing why they felt comfortable only taking 9, I can only read what's in Douglas.
I mean, I understand. I mean, I disagree. I think that,
Well, I think
that we should, I think we're working with these people. They're on the ground there. I mean, that's just me. I mean, I'm gonna leave it unless there's some crazy reason why. I'm going, you guys are there. You're having to deal with this. If you're in the matrix, I'm good with where you are. That's just me. So, and if we all have the right to do it how we want to, I just was.
Well, also, and remember also, I mean, we come together to talk about these cases, and on the reports, we do list what the D board said and what the individual board member is proposing. And, you know, hopefully we're able to get those out to everybody where they have the opportunity to look at that report and
Question.
create questions, we talk about it. So, you know, rather than maybe a blanket policy, it's the type of thing where we utilize this opportunity,
Right.
you know, to say, hey, I noticed that on this one, there, you know, the D board had said 9, we bumped it to
I
12.
understand.
You know, I would
And
have,
we
I would
can
have
do
kept
that.
it at 9. You know, it's an opportunity before we
And I
vote
mean,
on it.
and Mary has that right to do that.
Yeah.
And we're all different judges in here and we all look at it differently. If we're in the matrix, then that's perfectly fine. I was just, and Jerry has said that he's talked to a couple that have said, hey, will you back us on this? And I'm just expounding that,
No, I do.
expounding that.
I think personally, and I'm not in your all's shoes looking at the cases, you know, having been in the military, you know, being on the front lines, those types of things, you always want to feel like your leadership is hearing you and supporting you and doing those things, you know. So my preference would be, to the extent possible, to the extent it makes sense, you know, consider that the D board made this decision knowing everything, even if it's not in Thomas, but at the end of the day, it's up to you all to do what the legislature's asked you to do and make the best decision.
Yeah, that's true.
for the city.
And I mean, and if Mary does it that way, I just want to say this to Mary, that's perfectly fine. What you're doing is perfectly fine. And I was thinking, and I'd had that conversation with Jerry. We are, like, you might have a judge that's this way, and you might have a judge that's a little more lenient or a little more, and so we have that ability.
But we still come together before anything gets done. we come
And
together.
I'm not against how Mary does it.
Well, Betsy she's had her hand up. I just want to give her a chance and then we'll go to Dale. Betsy, I see your hand up.
Okay, thank you. I understand what everybody's saying, but I thought our goal was to be consistent within the board and within the matrix in alignment with what the facilities are doing. Isn't that what we're striving to reach? So are we saying everybody can just decide for herself or himself?
Well, I think the consistency comes certainly from the matrix. That's the stopgap. Everybody, whether it's the disciplinary boards or whether it's us, we're going to be inside the matrix. And I think what we're talking about now is a little more nuanced. And so we will be consistent to the extent that the matrix and its parameters will always be applied. But within those parameters, there's some leeway. And so if you have a situation where, just like we might talk about it, and someone might say, if I had gotten that case, I would have, he's got to be within 9 and 12. I would have said 9, and another board member says 11. So I mean, we're still relatively consistent. We're just really, getting down to some nitty gritty on how generic do we need to be across the board members, and how much discretion are we offering to the board members? And I think there are some who would like to have the discretion to choose what they think is best based on the description and the incident they read. And there are others who think that no matter which board member gets the situation, there should be parameters in place that dictate that result. So, it's a fair question. But But I mean, think we are striving for consistency, but there's still a little bit of nuance within that. Does that help at all?
Maybe.
I mean, what are your
For-
thoughts? Do you have a proposal for a policy that says if the D board makes a recommendation, we accept it unless it's outside of the matrix?
Well, what I understood Mike Sharon and Jerry to be saying is that they are asking us to respect their sentence if it's within the matrix, unless there's extraordinary circumstances. For instance, even if he has a bunch of priors, if they gave him 9 months, they don't want us to increase it unless, there's something egregious and completely unusual about the case. So that's what I've been doing. And if I don't, if I go outside the 9 months, then I was going to comment on that when we present the cases to the whole board. Is that what everyone else is doing? Or are we just all deciding for ourselves? I guess that's my confusion.
It's a question. I mean, is that what everyone's doing? Yeah.
And I was gonna bring this up, and this is something that Betsy and Mike Sharon and I had actually discussed is one of Betsy's cases, that, she was looking at, and it was within the matrix, and I don't remember the case, and Betsy, you probably won't remember the case for sure, but we got to looking at it, and I always, if they're in the matrix, I go back, look at their offender summary and all. Well, on the case that Betsy had, they're usually about 30 to 60 days behind on taking out all the credits. Well, if Betsy had increased it, it really wouldn't have made any difference over the 9 months because the guy was right on the edge of having a full 5-year extension. So that kind of made us understand why the D board took 9. Why take 12? Because he's maxed out. He's in his 5 years. So, that's what I look at is if the D board is already, this guy's got sentence extension and he's getting written up every week or every other week, and they're popping him, eventually he's gonna be out of time. So I understand, the 3 months difference it's not gonna do anything difference. Once you get to this Jethro, the hillbilly said, no.
Yeah, it comes down to the more we know, the better.
Yeah.
Help us.
Dale, I'm sorry, did you?
Well, I mean, look, one of the cases I had, it was written up, I said assault without a weapon. And the inmate took the door and hit the officer in the face and tipped his tooth. And so I went down to the second line there, assault on staff, and I hit 24 months. That door was a weapon. The door was a weapon.
Yeah.
In my opinion,
Yeah.
So, I mean, but there's no reason, I mean, if there's been a reason that in the description, if the officer had slipped and fell into the door, really, or whatever, and then chipped his own tooth, but I'm looking at it, bang, they slammed that door in his face, we come in there to take him out.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give it to him. I mean,
Well,
I'm with Mike and the rest of them too, if we had more information on some of these exceptions.
yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds to me like Betsy's saying that she tries to defer to the D board unless, she sees a reason to step out of it. Is that generally what people try and do?
Yes.
Okay. So, I think that's a fair approach. And if we determine that, that needs to be changed, we can do that. So Betsy, I'm sorry, Ms. Wiseman, I think you're right. I think you're doing pretty much how everyone else is doing it. So if it's okay with you, I say just keep doing what you're doing. And I think everyone else is pretty similar.
But we asked the question like that, if you look at all the cases, we're pretty well even anyway.
So I do want to point that out. That's another point. We did talk about this briefly. What I was able to do was go back, and like I said, what I really liked about the past couple of months is that now we've gotten in the groove with the new matrix, and the prisons have as well. So I went back and I looked at individually all the board members and what they were able to do in March and April. And it's really, really impressive and incredible how consistent we are across the board with regard to the number of disciplinaries we're presenting. Everybody's right around 100 or so. Some people a little higher, some people a little less. The numbers showing how many months we're taking, based on those 100 disciplinaries, pretty close. The number we're returning, fairly close. So, and that's for March and April. So I do think we are hitting that consistency fairly well across the board. And I really want to commend everybody for that. So I think, you know, the discussion that we're having is a really healthy one and a really, really good one. But there's more nuance to it. For right now, the structure and the effect that we're having, I would say is profound and really consistent considering, you know, how new it is.
And I'm working on the May cases. The numbers from that are gonna drop substantially.
Well, that's
I
what I'm
mean,
hoping
for
for, yeah.
me, I mean, I've got about 40 left out of 300. And I've got 17 that I'm taking time and 12 situations I'm giving it back. So they're almost equaling up because
And I would expect
even Whiteville is
everybody.
getting in, you know, everybody's got, there's not one person left that's refusing to follow.
Yeah, well,
Well, that's what we wanted.
That's what we wanted. And you know, for as much nuance as we're talking about, for the great majority of it, I think I would commend everybody on doing a really good job and staying relatively consistent. So I like what's been happening. So Ms. Wiseman, I would say that I think you're doing it right. I think everybody's on the same page. And now we're just talking about that last 15-20%. What do we want to continue to improve and change and all that? So, you know, I think what we'll say to wrap it up is the preference would be, to the extent possible, the board members will defer to the disciplinary board's decision as long as it's within the matrix, unless there's a reason to augment that or modify that. And we can talk about those when we come to the meetings. If anybody sees something in someone else's report that they have questions about, bring that to the meeting. Otherwise, just keep it what y'all are doing. I think it's working great.
Could I add one thing also that Mike and I kind of got a good explanation. We see a lot of cases where let's say there were 3 write-ups all at the exact same time, say assault on an offender, weapon, and an INT. And they all happen, let's say, at 0700. Well, under TDOC's policy, it's wavered from prison to prison, but we got I thought, a good explanation at Attorney Center yesterday. That all 3 of those, that's one case. But you take, or their D-board takes, and this is what the warden says that he told them to do. It's like, say, they've got 3 prior offenses. So obviously the assault is the more serious out of the 3. So let's say the D-board gives the guy, he's got 3 prior offenses, gives him 9 months for that assault. Well, then, because they all happen at the same time, the weapon is going to be the same. It's going to be a 9-month taken away too. The INT depends, they can go A or B. It could be dropped to a B, but if it stays at an A, then that's another 9 months, all taken on 3 cases, but they look at it as one. But if that inmate commits another offense, say 3 hours later, then that one offense that they took, those 3 offenses become 3 offenses. So that next offense, he's got 3 new offenses on that, but they look at it as the most serious one, then the rest are going to be equal with that on those multiple cases. Which made sense on it, which then again, the warden also said that there was no verbals. There should not be any verbals on Class A, but we've got mixed reviews on that too. Some of them are doing verbals, so that's something we'll have to get to the command staff and find out.
Yeah, there's quite a bit to relate to that.
May I ask if you all discussed with them, the percentage that they continue to dismiss? And, where they are in relationship to that, because we know even from last year, and even using the matrix, it hasn't changed significantly. It's between 33 and 36% that are getting dismissed. And so, and this isn't, sometimes a Selly took it and they write that. But I'm through with my May ones already. And I have some in May where they dismissed it on both of them. So nobody was charged and there's an incident and clearly, they either found drugs or they found weapons, whatever it is. So with both being dismissed, we don't have any visibility on a third of the incidents written having a consequence, because there is the consequence, they're dismissed. So what is the D board saying about that?
We've got different things on that, which one, a lot of it will be that it was written up improperly. And they'll put that in Thomas, well, it may only stay there a day and then it's gone, because they dismissed it. So some of them we catch and it'll say, that the D board, D board, display or hearing officer, found that due process was not proper on it and dismissed it. And some of them will even say like issue a rewrite it. But once then, again, within just a day or so, all that's gone is because it's dismissed. So for Mike, it's calls himself Mr. Question, he gets them to send him the
disciplinary law.
disciplinary law and they'll explain that. But
Every time. I mean, well, so we haven't really, I haven't gotten into that with them on our last couple of visits, but that's a great point. So, but when I see those, because you're right, I've got at least two that I'm looking at for this month. How in the heck can you dismiss it with your the cell search, you find a knife on one book?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm sending in the form and requesting information. I need more information, then I say, please send me the disciplinary law.
So,
And then when they send those back, it'll say something like, subject to reissue, no reporting official listed, no evidence, blah, blah, blah. And that's one of the things I've got for questions the next time we meet with them is, you say you're gonna reissue, but you don't. Because then I'll put the date in there on my spreadsheet as of, 5/20, this has not been reissued to this person. So it's a great point. Dismissals are still an issue. I think they're getting much better, as a whole, certainly taking away a lot more sentence credits than they used to. And dismissing less. Certainly I don't see as many, off of Thomas and then back on a month later. So they're staying active and we're seeing stuff. They're starting to, document it a little bit better. It'll say, dismissed per so-and-so because of and it'll list another incident, that's a duplicate, then you can go to that incident and see where, and I'm like, okay, now I'm fine with that case. But you're right, there's still some opportunity for them to get better on those, dismissals for sure.
so just taking it from thinking about what our statutory responsibility is for oversight to look at incidents that occur. And if in fact it's being dismissed because the facility hasn't followed due process, then it would seem that, I don't know, but somehow for reporting purposes, being able to quantify that, because the incident still happened. And sentence credits weren't removed because staff didn't handle it properly. And so as an oversight board, being able to make those recommendations, make those suggestions. So to me, that's one way to standardize that, incidents of this type are being responded to in the following way by having sentence credits removed properly without it being just dismissed and nothing happens. There's no consequence for that. And it's a systematic change, how to make the system better, to use Mr. Lindsay's words.
I do think it is better.
Still a long way to go, but yes.
I mean, more than half of mine are where the Stelly took the charge for the.
Oh, your dismissals, yes.
Yeah.
But to her point, the last couple of months, I've seen, to Mary's point, there's more where they're both being dismissed, which is problematic.
But
So
if we are gonna capture that, it's important to get the information about whether or not it's being dismissed because, for example, it's not a due process issue if they say there's no evidence or
Yeah, I'm
you know,
not giving
whatever.
you my-
So
My Excel spreadsheet.
I like what Mike's doing in terms of, hey, give me the more information on why it's dismissed. That way we can identify those that are being dismissed for due process issues and therefore something should have happened but didn't versus those who were, that should have been dismissed. They just were properly dismissed.
Yeah. And I'll give you a particular case that was on my mind while we were having this discussion. It's a case that happened at West 10, and it involves 3 offenders who threatened, and by all 3 incident, or the incident written for all 3, says that the culmination was that they forced an inmate into protective custody. So protective custody is an elevated expense. It's a different environment. It's a different way. So, and they're written up for gang activity. So in connection with one another, 3 of them approached a particular inmate, threatening them substantially, and the facility agreed that that person should be put into protective custody, and it was dismissed for all 3 of the participants in the incident. And I can't find anywhere where it's been reissued or, so I'm, just thinking, how do we kind of get to those more nuanced situations?
You need to discipline the law, right?
Yeah, and begin to understand, because it would seem that there's opportunities for us. So I think it's great what we're doing with the matrix, but what we're all learning along the way is different doors are opening and there's other opportunities for us. And so I really would like us at some point to get to the dismissed. and
Was it a
start thinking
PGA?
about
Is that how they would have written that out? Yeah, okay.
But it's an excellent point that you bring up about this evolution because, one of the things that has been brought to my attention is the argument that, why couldn't what we do be done in an audit? But, what we're learning is that this is an evolution, that this can't be done, quickly. So, the fact that we continue to learn and do and make new findings and recommendations month to month, year to year is really what creates the need for us and the fact that all of you are finding these new things and we're digging deeper, it's a testament to all the work that you're doing. And it's a great service to the state and corrections in general. So go for it. But good. If there's no other comments on that agenda item, we will start to go to a vote on the reports. Okay, I don't, Ms. Wiseman, I don't see your hand. If it's all right with you, we'll just keep going. All right.
Do I have my hand up?
No, you don't. I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure you didn't have anything else to add.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, well, moving on to the 1025 agenda item. We will start with Chairman Vastbinder's report for this month. And I think he'll entertain questions and we'll move to a vote on those incidents.
Yeah, which is my April cases, and actually, I was able to, from Director Stahl, I have 2 cases that were still pending from April, and actually, there were 3 defendants in it, and it was a weapons case, and the one that pled guilty, I knew the other 2 were going to be dismissed. It just seemed like it took 45 days to do it. Out of reviewing it, if y'all had a chance to look at it, the B board took 153 months. And by the matrix, and I try to play the matrix, when they get to the 9 to 12, I go basically, if it's 3 to 4, they're in the 9. If it's 5 to 6, I look at 10. If it's 7 to 8, I look at 11. If you're over 8, I'm 12. So that's why you'll see some 12. But I ended up taking the total with what PDOC had taken and with the matrix increase was 565 months, which was an increase of 418 months out of all the prisons. I had some to give back, and there, it was 58 months that EDOC had taken, by their matrix. The inmates actually, will do back some credits. So, they received, 34 months back. So that, actually was a drop to, 24 months on that. And then at the very last, I had from March, I had 2 cases pending. And, one was from South Central. The guy had, 1 prior, and the D board had taken 2. So I increased it to 3 by the matrix, so it was an increase of 1. Then, Whiteville, the guy had 6 priors, D board gave him 5 months. I increased it to 9, which was 4 months, and that is all of my April, and that finishes out all of my March. So I have no pendings left. It's just kind of.
And one quick question. On page 2, you have a note,
I had a-
Rosedale, a C.
I had a C up there, that, it's still there. When I first looked at it, it's a WRM, and they had taken, it was just probation and restriction. The guy had 4 priors, they took none, and I put the C in there to double check that it was correct. So I had gone back and double checked the incident number at all, because I think, and it was my human error, I think I had something besides the WRM, which was weapon draw material, written down when I did my, that C meant to go double check it, and I did.
Okay, all right, just caught my eye. Just
Yeah.
wanted to- Okay, well, if you want,
I'd like to submit those to the board if there's any questions.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
second, great. Any discussion? Okay, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of, approving the report, as written, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate that. Thank you, Jerry. Okay, next we have Mr. Dunn, Vice Chair, sir.
Thank you, sir. This is a representation of some of my cases, and I just wanted to read one of these to you all. I'm gonna leave out the suspect name and specific cell and pod location, but this is one of the examples, and Ms. Wiseman has the other portion of this case, because they did, as Jerry mentioned before, Chairman Vestmeyer mentioned before, how they do separate incidents and at the same occurrence. And this is the second incident on the list there. It's at Riverbend Maximum Security Prison on April 21st. And it's on my portion, it's an ASO with 8 priors. The D board gave 12 months, and I increased it to 24. Let me read why. And you'll understand this will be one of those cases where this is an exception. This is on camera, and it was determined that an assault on offender with weapon did occur at approximately 1:36.
I gotta listen.
Yes. Can you hear me?
You said something.
She said, I gotta listen. She said, I gotta listen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was
That's okay.
unmuted. My son's talking to me.
That's okay, sorry. And you'll understand this, Ms. Wiseman. At approximately 1:36 a.m., inmate suspect assigned to unit this number tampered with the lock security device of his cell door and left the cell. This suspect went directly to another cell and tampered with the lock on that door and opened it, went inside that cell for approximately 2 minutes. Inmate suspect then came out and went to the door of another cell, spoke with that inmate for approximately 30 seconds, then proceeded to go downstairs and went into cell X assigned to inmate victim. And approximately 1:41 a.m., the camera shows the inmate victim run out of the cell with suspect right behind him, stabbing him numerous times in the back and neck areas. Upon reaching the pod table, the suspect repeatedly stabbed the victim with an approximately 6-inch piece of metal, sharpened to a point with a cloth handle, possible bunk or desk metal, and both inmates fell to the floor. Inmate suspect repeatedly stabbed inmate victim while on the floor. Inmate victim was attempting to protect himself and get inmate suspect off of him. Simultaneously, at approximately 1:41 a.m., a currently unidentified inmate assigned to this particular unit came out of his cell and went downstairs. This inmate was observing the assault and proceeded to walk up to inmate victim and, suspect, and kick him in the torso area, and then pulled inmate suspect by his arm away from the inmate victim while they were both on the floor. Inmate suspect got up off the floor and proceeded to put the weapon in his pants and walk toward the stairs to go back to his cell. At approximately 1:42 a.m., a code 1 officer needs assistance was called by correctional officer. This victim to the unit, this pod. Responding staff, shift commander, the captain, a corrections officer, another corrections officer, another corrections officer, and a 5th corrections officer arrived at this particular unit and began giving direct orders to inmates that had tampered with their locks and got out of their cell to go back into their assigned cells. They did not comply with directives. It was observed that these inmates, that the inmate victim was covered in a copious amount of blood. As the inmates were being secured, inmate suspect walked into his assigned cell, and the cellmate of the suspect walked out of the cell and put his shower shoes and slippers on. After not complying with the directives to go back into the cell, several responding staff went upstairs to secure the door. The cellmate went back inside the cell, but inmate suspect proceeded to punch the captain through the open door in the facial area, eye and forehead. As they tried to secure it, he tried 3 more times, punching him in the facial area. Inmate suspect would not comply with directives to allow the door to be secured or fully open because he was holding it. It goes on to put him into custody, and it goes on and on and on with non-compliance with other inmates. But I figured that's one of those incidents. My goodness, how is this guy ever going to assimilate to society? And so he's going to get 24, the max of their matrix. But beyond that, it's pretty standard. And total months assigned by the board was 63. I had to increase it to 89. And credit restoration docket recommendations by the D board was 12. And I gave 4 back. And on the next page were some old pending cases that for whatever reason was behind in the system. So those were finally caught up, and was an additional D board decision of 16 to the matrix that I saw for 48.
So
Pretty standard.
can I ask 2 things? First, that's a great write-up. I really appreciate that because that gives us, when we do talk to people and they say, well, do you have examples of what you guys are looking for or whatever? That's a really good one we can keep in our back pocket and show. This is a write-up. This helps us review this stuff. The other question I want to ask, when on your restoration docket, when it says that the D board gave 9 months, are you changing it to 3 months so there would be a difference of 6 months?
Yes, sir.
Or, okay, so then if it goes from 9 to 3, that would be plus 6 months.
And I might adopt the chairman's system of putting the math on the side, so it's very.
Well, yeah, so just so that everyone knows, when we do the action forms, there's some blank spaces that say how many months are we granting? You know, how are we
Let's see
returning?
how good you work.
So I just want to make sure. So that first one will be, our action form will say that we are returning 6 months to this inmate, and then the second one, we're returning 2 more months. Is that right? Okay. Thank you. It helps us make sure. Because, no, don't apologize. It's just, we want to make sure that we're telling TDOC what you intend for us to say. So that's why I just want to be clear. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, thank you, Vice Chair. If there's a motion to approve and,
So moved.
okay, have a second. Any discussion on the report? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, great. Thank you, Vice Chairman. We'll get those out to, the proper officials of PDOC and over to the inmates, hopefully this week or beginning of next. Okay, moving on. I believe we have, Mr. Carr. Sir, are you next?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chairman. As you can see, my report's here on the, skipping over to the third page. The D-board rated 349 months and I put 950 for a difference of like 601 there. Some of them, of course, you know me, I like to, I don't like to, but I tend on the upper scale sometime on those, especially if they've got so many priors, and a lot of them have a lot of priors that they go on. 4 priors, 5 priors, 8 priors. One here had 17 priors, and I went up to D-board give them 9. I went on to 12 to 17. So I mean, I stayed pretty close in that. A couple of that bad cases I went to 24, but that's what I got on that. And then on the ones I returned, the D-board had 44 and the matrix was 29, so I'm giving back 45 of those on that one. That's for good behavior. And then we had pending cases from a few that had in February and March. As you can see on that case there, the D-board had taken off 46, now it had been taken off 93, which is a difference of 47. And then on the restoration on my PDs, the D-board took off 53 and I recommended only 23, so it's a difference of giving back 30 months. But, and like I think I will agree that coming on down, I think it's getting a little closer to the matrix and getting a little fewer cases too, that seems like, so.
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion seconded. Any discussion, any questions for Mr. Carr? On his cases or report?
Dale, is this card, that case you were talking about from last night? 24 and 12.
I'm saying
That last page.
The door.
No, this is indecent exposure.
Oh,
The restoration.
Restoration credit. This one here, 24 and 12.
Yeah, first one on the restoration document.
Let me get to it here. There you go. Restoration.
oh, yeah.
Well, he had no priors. And see, there's again too, he had no priors. And they went max on him. I went back to 12. Now, there might have been some reason, if they give us a reason that he slapped me or two. I don't know, but I just looked at that and said, okay, well, he had no priors at all. First indecent exposure. And so even full 24, I went back to 12. And I give him the 12, not 8 or 9 or whatever, but
That's there. I'm noticing, I think West 10 and maybe South Central, there's 2 or 3 that give 24, don't they? Have y'all noticed that?
well, if they,
On indecent, I'm talking about,
Yeah.
they're gonna it doesn't matter, they're gonna get you for 24, I guess. And it's not all the prisons, it's just a few.
But you do remember that there's 5 or 6 different categories, right, where they can give up to 24.
yeah, right.
And I believe indecent exposure is one of them.
This exposure is one of them. Yeah, it's,
Mr. Carr saying the write-up did support it.
yeah, and it is one of the ones go up to 24 months, and I forget what I've got myself locked out of the comas right now, or I can look it up and see what it said, but I can look it up and see, but,
It would probably be one, I actually had 2 that were totally different where I bumped it up because, like you said, it was, most of the time it's a cell situation where they're in the cell.
Yeah.
Somebody's walking by or that. This one, these 2 where they went to the counselor's office and did it there.
well, now that,
Predatory.
that would be.
And then the other one, they were in class and they did it in front of the whole class.
Yeah, well,
So that's just a different
Of
situation.
course, you know me, I'm gonna give them the full on that.
Right.
Promise to expand on what you're saying. I
You look at it.
kind of think about them in 3 groups and tell me if this is kind of how you've seen it too, because I know we've seen probably about
Right.
similar cases. Somebody's in their cell and it's count time.
Yeah.
Okay, count time is known. So if you're doing that then, to me, that shows intent.
Female officer usually
Right.
banking the count.
Or it's count time and they're saying a lot of nasty stuff to whoever the person is, okay?
Ain't trying to make eye contact.
Yeah,
and
all
kind
of that.
stuff, Yeah.
To me, I'm on this over here, right?
Yeah.
But then you have some, and I've had a couple like this where they're in their cell, it's not count time. Whoever is just happening to walk around. And with those, I'm kind of like, okay, well, I don't see anything here that tells me intent.
Right.
So those are kind of the three buckets that I think
Yeah.
about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's.
But it's all about the right.
Yes,
You gotta have
well, that's all I can
You gotta
base it
have that
on,
information
is
in
the
the right.
write-up.
And
Yeah.
to your
Count
point,
on, let's go back to 24 then.
to your
I don't
point,
care.
Dr. Carpos, you know,
No,
We just looked it up.
yeah,
No, I mean, I understand.
But that's what,
This is your case.
I don't know why. I mean, you know, I've slept since then. I had a lot of happen since then.
There's a lot going on, and
Yeah.
to your point, yeah, we get, you know, and you get into a rhythm.
Yeah.
Like, all right, it's on the matrix, but then sometimes I forget about those 6 exceptions.
Well, I
But
mean,
this one that.
I have no problem with y'all changing that back to 24 months on that because as you said, as Dr. Carter said, and this was a count time.
Maybe that's why they gave
Yeah.
it 24.
I don't, I mean,
So if you wanna-
if he's never had one, I could see your.
I'll make a motion to amend my,
I could see what you're saying too, because the one you just said, the predator one.
Yeah, mine
To
was
me,
like,
that's
he
a-
went
That's a
to do
late
it.
24.
That
That's a
should be
24.
probably been
Criminal
36
case should be
right there.
preferred to outside.
But the other one may be a 12.
I-
I don't know.
I'm saying that for that situation, I don't like to mess with the T board, but it's totally up to you.
no, I'll make a motion on that one.
I'm in
That was that count time. I make a motion that I take the D-board's recommendation on that and strike that from my report and let it stand as is.
Second.
okay, great. Any other discussion on making that change and then accepting the report into the record otherwise? Okay, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carr. Really appreciate that discussion. Thanks, everybody, for talking about that
I'm
again.
number one now, okay?
We got it. I think it's great, but you know,
It is, it's
to
great.
Mr. Frank's point, I mean, this is, you know, why, while the individuals are looking at the cases, we're collectively deciding them. And that's an important distinction, I think, with what we're doing when it
Probably
comes
just looked at
to.
that zero and said, okay, forget it.
That's right, that's right. So, thank you, everybody. Okay, well, I don't want to keep everyone much past. We're already a little bit behind our schedule, so we'll just keep moving along. And I believe our next presenter is Mr. Lindsay, sir.
Well, before I start, I request that my colleague John Doe earn his name tag around. So
Undercover.
I didn't know.
You never do that to an undercover.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
They'll teach you that.
Yeah, I know if it was a member of the public or what, ED, I didn't know.
They can
Today.
Oh, God, I'm gonna go explain that. Okay, my report is, I try to stay with the matrix and go with what the board, what we voted on to stay within the matrix. I had one, had 34 priors.
Yeah.
Second highest was 20. And when we go down to page 2, the board landed at 134 months. I went up to 405 months. When we go down to the restoration docket, they landed at 21, and I only restored back 9. And these are all in the matrix that we discussed.
Hey, Mike, you want to document those total numbers? If you do the 34 and the 20.
30, yep.
Can you say those again?
134 priors, his Tomas ID number is 525.
Yep, got it.
Got it, 335. The other one's 20.
Second one's 20.
Got it. Yeah.
Got it, okay. Those are pretty good.
Okay.
I make a motion to submit my report.
Motion approved.
Okay, second. Any discussion, any questions for Mr. Lindsay, any notes? Okay, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, looks great. Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Okay, next, presenter's report is, Mr. Frank.
Yes, I think mine a little bit different. I need to probably get that number that you guys have. The D board, I moved to, step of my, papers here. D-Board took 726 months. And I took an additional 407 months and gave back 41 months. I did not do the numbers that some of y'all, most of y'all have been doing
That's okay.
between the difference, but the only thing I want to say, and I've said before, is that I'm very impressed. These numbers weren't like this in February. We were taking the majority of the time, but the D boards are now taking 726. We're taking about a little less than half, I mean, a little more than half of what they're taking. And so that's where we want to be heading in that direction. I believe. So, I just asked to approve.
Motion. Second.
Second, okay. Any notes, any questions? Mr. Frank? Okay, we'll move to a vote then. All in favor of approving the report as it's presented in the notebook, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Okay, next presenter, I believe, is Ms. Wiseman. Ms. Wiseman, would you like to talk about your report?
Yes, I would. First of all, Mr. Stahl contacted me about that case he mentioned earlier today, where we submitted the incident report erroneously and took time from the wrong inmate. And I meant to include that in my written report, but I'm just going to announce it orally. If I can pull it up. It was cellmates, and we just took time from the wrong person. Well, I'll just do that at the end because I'm having trouble finding the email. But 1 second. There it is. Sorry, y'all. I had this pulled up and then I closed out my email. Okay, let's just look at my report and then I'll find it. I reviewed and changed, or my not okays were 109 cases. And I had several where I had to return time, like they took too much time, which always pains me, but my total was 491 months taken away. And I did notice, like some of you all, that some of the facilities are getting so much better. And which is the one that is always, Whiteville is the one that always is the sticking point, at least for me. But yeah, does anybody, and there was one, and that's the one that Mr. Dunn was talking about, where the inmate was stabbed several times and they had to take him to seek outside medical care. That's the only one I went outside the matrix to request 24 months to be taken away. But otherwise, I'd make a motion for my incidents to be reviewed and accepted.
Second.
Okay, seconded. Just a quick question, Ms. Wiseman. There's, if you go down on your first page, about 2/3 of the way down, there's a couple, if you look in the where any sentence credits withdrawn column, there's a couple of incidents where you have VW listed there. I just wasn't sure what that indicated. Verbal write-up, okay. Or verbal write-up or verbal warning?
Verbal warning.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much. I just hadn't come across that, so. Anyone else? Any questions for Ms. Wiseman? Okay, looks good. Did you want to present that other incident as well? Ms.
I
Wiseman?
do, and I just had it pulled up and I can't find it in my stupid email. Hold on, let me see. Can we vote on my motion while I'm looking?
Second, somebody already seconded, didn't it?
Yeah, it's seconded, so we could move to a vote.
Call the question.
Okay, all in favor of the report as presented in the notebook, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Ms. Wiseman, why don't we come back to you at the end and you could just offer that last one.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Got the email.
We need the right guy. I can't remember the right guy's name. It's Demetria or something.
Jonathan Dunn and Dedrick Lindsay.
Dedrick Lindsay.
Yeah, it's
Um,
Lindsay.
But do you have the,
Thomas, the incident number,
yeah,
165-6918.
656198, yep. And what's the
It was
total?
improperly taken from Jonathan Dunn and needs to be taken from Dedrick Lindsay.
And what's the Thomas number, the correct Thomas? What's Lindsay's Thomas number, do you know?
I'm just looking at your email and I
It's not
don't,
in there.
hold on. My force. I can find it.
Okay, and what are we changing it to?
Do you want Dunn's TDOC number? I've got that.
No, I need Lindsay's, just so that everyone's clear on who we're taking it from, what we're taking it for.
Yeah, I'll have to pull it up. I'll pull it up.
Okay, all right, we'll come back to it. Okay,
I think,
well, actually, if Mrs. Sharon's helping with that, why don't we skip Ms. Sharon, your report, and Dr. Karpos, why don't we go to your report? And that way, we can return to Ms. Sharon's and Ms. Wiseman's case. One thing I know before you go, everybody should have a addendum in the notebook. So Dr. Karpos has a couple of sets of cases that she's going to be talking about. So you have one set that's actually in the notebook, and then you have an addendum, several pages of an addendum on the back. Ms. Wiseman, I emailed you the additional cases that Dr. Karpos is going to be presenting. They were actually sent out on the 22nd. They just didn't get printed and put in the notebooks in time. So do you have that email in front of you?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so
I
that's
do.
why I sent you that email. So we're going to be talking about those additional cases as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Karpos, so
Okay, so, you should have, one piece of paper that says partial April 2025 credit removal docket Karpos. And, at the bottom, it has partial credit restoration docket. So this particular month, just because I was looking at different types of numbers, this is all the TDOC facilities, incidents that I received and marked as not okay. And so, the total months the D board took was 174, and I calculated it at 324. And then the next page is the next two pages are the core civic facilities. And the D board for the core civic facilities for the month of April, it was 182 they took, and I came up with 643. So even though the TDOC total D board at 174 is real close to the D board 182 for the core civic, the deviation or what wasn't taken is significantly different. Remember at TDOC, it was 324, but it was 643 at the core civic facility. So combining the partial and the remainder, which is the two sets, which covers all 14 of the facilities, there were 356 credits that the D boards removed, and I came up with 967. So that's a difference of 611. And then on the restorations, once again, looking at the restorations for the Department of Corrections, they had taken 74 and I came up with 39. The core civic facilities had taken 21. I came up with 7. So combining those, giving back, there's a total of 49 credits for the month of April that would go back. And then I did a third docket, and this docket is my pending cases. I look at those quarterly. And so going back February, March, and April, that's what this 2-page document is. The first page has to do with removals. And so there were 111 removals by the D board. I came up with 460. And for restoration on the second page, there were 42 removals. I came up with 10. So the total removals, the total different amount for actual removing from the pending cases would be a total of 349 more should be removed. And the restoration 32 should be given back. So I think those numbers.
Great. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Motion to approve.
Motion seconded. Any questions, any discussions, any notes? Okay, we'll move to a vote on Dr. Parkhurst's reports. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Parkhurst. We appreciate it. Okay, we'll go back to Mr. Sharon. Your report, sir.
Yes, sir. So April, the prisons that I looked at did really well. Northeast and Attorney Center were perfect. The two worst, as everybody said, most opportunities for improvement, White Bell and Trousdale by far. So I reviewed 200 cases for the month of April regarding 228 inmates. 5 of those cases are still pending, which is a little concerning to me, not so much those 5, but I think I've got something like 21 cases pending going back to October. So I'm hoping that we can give a TDOC and they can do some cleaning up of those outstanding cases, those pending cases. But after careful review of those 228 total cases, I'm recommending the additional removal of sentence credits of 610 months. Those were 73 separate cases that they were not within the matrix. Then I'm recommending that we reinstate or restore on 5 different cases, a total of 5 months of sentence credits. So I so move. Motion to pass.
Okay, any discussion? Any questions? Okay, looks great. All in favor of approving the motion as in the notebook and in the report, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay, one other quick order of business before we close out. Ms. Wiseman, did you have that case you wanted to present?
Well,
So I
thank you,
think-
Mr. Sharon. He found it for us. But I still can't find the email. I'm sorry. It was taking time away from Dedrick Lindsay, but I can't find the email with the exact amount of months. Can we maybe revisit this next meeting?
Yes, we can do that. Not a problem.
I could, well, I'll tell you.
Unless you can find it.
You got 1 month.
Do you remember, Ms. Wiseman, what you wanted to change it to? From 1 month to
I
something
think it was
else?
6, but I'd have to look it up. I mean, I'd have to go
Okay.
through Thomas and
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll just keep that on the docket for next month. Okay, but that is great. Thank you, everybody. Okay, before we close up, just a little bit of housekeeping here. We'll move on to the public comment portion of.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Carr, please.
no, I mean, we were just talking, when we were mouthing at each other here. If we can set up a visit with Morgan
Okay.
and
Absolutely.
Bledsoe, I know that, Dunn and myself and Lee and probably the chairman, we'd like to go, since it's up, close to East Tennessee, we'll start covering those.
Great. Absolutely. Yes.
And
We can do that.
and we can go later on, we'll probably have to go on up.
I think we were gonna, if it's doable, if Mike wants to come, I think Jerry had talked about, if he wants to be there as chairman, maybe hit either one of the two, maybe probably Bledsoe and then come up to Morgan and then maybe stay over in Knoxville. You wouldn't have to, but
Yeah.
Don and Jerry, and then go all the way up to the corner to Northeast and then
Yeah.
back.
Yeah,
That's what we were thinking. If
Yeah.
whoever wants married or want to tell anybody wants to make that trip, we talked about that.
Okay. Well, why don't we'll set something up maybe on Friday, this week, and we can talk about what dates work for everybody, and then we can get those over to TDOC
and
and,
if they stay like in Knoxville or, I mean, they can come on up to Stark County instead of one day.
But,
yeah,
we could even, Dale, if we were trying to finish before the year, we could even do it in September once we get through all the vacation time stuff.
Well, yeah, we can do it later, that's fine, I don't care if we have to do it right now or not, but I'm just saying we could do the, Upper Eastern Tennessee part,
great.
because these,
start saying, guys, these gentlemen here have already done West Tennessee.
Well, that's the goal. The goal is to do all 14 before the end of the
Yeah,
year. So the
yeah.
combined efforts would certainly make that happen. I think
Yeah.
we'll be able to do it regardless, but, more hands make less work. So. that's-
And what might work is Mike, Jerry coming through, you and him hit Trousdale. That's the only one we would have left then. And then maybe.
Definitely want him with you.
So you're the first one.
I wouldn't want to get, yeah, I'm gonna be out there.
Trousdale's
Okay,
close to you,
yes,
and Mike.
we can do it. Yes, sir.
So housekeeping, just
Well, we
Ms.
are,
Wiseman's case.
Ms. Wiseman,
Yeah,
please,
let's
okay.
go ahead and I'd like to make a motion,
Okay,
that it was Whiteville Correctional Facility, incident number 1656918.
okay,
The offender, the inmate is Dedrick Lindsay, 538032. I'd like to make a motion that we remove 8 months for her, 8 months of sentence credits, to rectify that mistake that we've had.
so he was originally given 1 month.
1 month,
We're changing it to 8 months,
changing it to 9 months.
changing it to 9 months,
Yes.
getting 8 months, okay?
Yes.
Yes, okay, that's the motion. Seconded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Great, that cleans that up, thank you
Just
very
so
much.
everybody else knows, the appeals committee fixed the other guy, we amended that, so he didn't lose 9 months.
Yeah, again, this is that case where it was 2 inmates, they were both charged, 1 inmate was dismissed, the other was given 1 month, but we erroneously put the second inmate's information into the action. So the second inmate, the one that was dismissed, was the one who was 8 months was taken from him. So we're fixing that mistake. We've already sent information to BDOC, so that second inmate has been restored his 8 months that he should not have had taken. So that cleans that up. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, just real quick, 2 more things. Public comment period. I don't see anyone online. We do have a member of the public here, sir. Anything you'd like to add? Any notes? Okay, appreciate you being here. We'll move on to the closing notes. We do have the Deborah Pace site visit today scheduled for 1 o'clock. If anyone needs the address or if anyone needs help getting over there, please let me know. And one other thing is I know Mr. Sharon wanted to talk quickly about the July meeting. We currently have that scheduled for, it's the second Wednesday, so it'll be the
Yeah, I
16th.
just wanted to make sure everybody, and then we talked about it last week, that I'm gonna be out of town.
Yeah, actually, the second Wednesday is the 9th. Yeah, so.
I'm out of town the 9th and the 16th, so.
Okay.
I'll be able to.
So Mr. Chairman would be able to make that meeting if we keep it on the 9th or the 16th. He'd like to know if we'd like to change it to the 23rd. Yes, and
I mean, I would like to, because I can't make that 10th meeting either.
you can't make the 9th or the 16th?
That's fine. I'm sorry.
The 9th, okay. So you can't make the 9th.
It's good for me to move.
I don't have my
Don't
calendar.
change it for me.
I don't have my
I
calendar.
just want to make sure you all understand for Travis, you all can plan so that we have a forum, may be able to join on either of those states virtually. I'm not necessarily, I appreciate that, but I'm not.
Well, it's no trouble. How about we do this? I will, yes, Ms. Wiseman.
I'm moving it. I'm available the 9th and the 16th, but not the 23rd. I might be able to be here for the 23rd, but I'm supposed to be in Memphis, so I may be able to just come back and forth, but.
Okay, so here's what I propose. I will send out an email to everybody, asking for everybody to respond to the email, my email that I will send out. And I will say, please let me know if you're available on the 9th, 16th, or 23rd. And just respond to me and say all of them, or hey, I can do the 9th, or I can do the 16th, I can do the 23rd, whatever it may be. And that way I will see when most people are available and we'll schedule it for that day. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, great. Okay, that is all I have. I will turn it back over to the chairman for adjournment.
If there's no other business to be conducted, is the motion to adjourn.
Don't move. Second.
We are adjourned.
I guess we don't call it, just want to leave nice.